What's up guys, welcome back to another video on What If Deku Had Asta's Powers, Part 2. Where we last left off, Deku had just met a peculiar fellow in his dreams. His name was Mr. D, or Mr. Devil, or Demon if you would like. And we'll now pick up. Today is the day of the UA entrance exam after all. Deku had a smile on his face when he was talking to his mom. The house's mood seemed to have brightened. Now that Deku had a quirk, no one really seemed to be down. Everyone was kinda happier. Inko was more happy about Deku's ability, and Deku was still excited. He had mainly trained with first and second sword. He hadn't even touched the third or fourth sword yet. And if what happened in the dream was true, apparently there was even more stuff Deku doesn't even know. And he's not even at his strongest yet. Deku left the house and he went to UA. Deku got there. He took a deep breath in and out. Deku was a little bit more bulkier in this series, mainly because he was training with the Demon Slayer's sword a lot, which is the sword he has in his hand in the thumbnail. And that sword is really, really heavy. Extremely heavy. Like, if most people tried to lift it, they probably couldn't. Deku is barely even able to lift it, but it gets easier thanks over the 10 months that he spent training. Deku takes the first step, and then he takes the second step, and then he trips. Luckily, before falling flat on his face, he felt someone touch his back as he stayed floating in the air. He turned around to see a girl stretch out her hand towards him. "Are you okay?" Deku's like, Oh, yes, I am. Thank you, Uraraka. Thank you, Uraraka," Deku said as he grabbed the hand of the brunette-haired girl. "Well, good luck," she says as she runs off. Deku's like, "Oh, good luck." Deku started walking forward some more. Inside his head, the anti-magic devil kind of laughed. Haha, kid's got a girlfriend. Deku heard this and he kind of almost freaked out. He started looking around. He's like, "Who's there?" he says. And the anti-magic devil responds, "It's me, kid." "Wait, what? I thought you were a dream." "Kid, if I was a dream, you are a very sadistic-minded person." Okay. I'm very sorry, Mr. D. Whatever. Deku took a deep breath out. Bakugo from the background saw Deku kind of acting weird, and he decided to walk past him, purposely ignoring him and making sure that he doesn't get caught by Deku. Deku enters the room. He was mumbling slightly, which annoyed the boy who's sitting next to him. The boy stood up and asked Deku to quiet down, which got attention of everyone else. He had blue hair and glasses. He seemed to be a very active man. Deku apologized, and then the boy sat back down saying thank you for apologizing and understanding the area reactions. Deku kind of shrugged this off, not thinking much about it. The person who was speaking continued. And then a form got passed out to everyone, being the written exam test. Deku was filling out his test when the anti-magic devil responded, saying, "Wow, they make you fill out tests to use stuff?" Deku, not wanting to talk, was like, "Well, yeah, of course. We can't have people running around with superpowers in stand-up tights that aren't verified and have license." And the anti-magic devil's like, "Kid, let's be serious here. No one really wants to go for this long-winded exam. God, it would be better if they just set them up and sent them running like a gladiator arena against villains." Deku thought to himself, "Well, then there wouldn't be a difference between heroes and villains. Kid, if the difference between heroes and villains is one has a license and one doesn't, that really says more about the heroes than it does about the villains." Deku thought about this for a moment and was like, "Yeah, sure, that makes sense. Whatever. The answer to number 15 is B." "Oh, thank you," Deku says as he fills in answer 15. They continued talking in their head until they entered and filled in their tasks. And then Deku just sat back and closed his eyes. When he closed his eyes, he entered the area where the anti-magic devil was at. He seemed to have made the space in Deku's mind a little bit more nice, I guess you could say. Rather than it just being a giant red scape, there seemed to be some sort of house that was set up that Deku could enter and chill at. Eventually, the test was done, and the person started to explain the actual event itself and the test, the practical exam. Once again, the blue-haired boy stood up after the guy was explaining and said, "Sir, there are 4 robots on this thing. Are you telling me that UA is incorrect here? If so, that's a massive dismiss of everything else here." And which Deku, being kind of annoyed because he was chilling talking to his devil friend while this boy interrupted not once but twice, said, "Just shut up and let the man explain. Jeez." Ito looked back to see who said that, but he couldn't tell. He thought the voice sounded familiar, but he wasn't thinking much about that. And then he sat back down. President Mike said thank you to whoever said that. And thank you for sitting down, as he explained about the 0-pointer robot and said, "It's not really an enemy, it's more of an obstacle." Ida, who was kind of upset, really didn't think much about it. The next event happened. They all walked out there. Deku saw Bakugo and kind of gave a slight smile towards Bakugo, but really didn't want to show off his actual truthful emotions too much. Afterwards, Deku then entered the city he was in. The place was pretty big. The doors opened, and the anti-magic devil's like, "Well, what are you waiting for, kid? Are we going to start running or not?" Deku then said, "We're waiting for him to say go." President Mike gets on the mic and said, "What are you doing, guys? There's no starts in a battle. Go, 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 go." And Anti-Magic Devil kind of laughed, and Deku was like, "God damn it." Deku kind of has a more rougher personality in this one. After the 10 months, because he worked harder. He doesn't have an arrogant personality, but he has more of an aggressive personality, I guess you can say, as an offset of using anti-magic constantly. Deku then ran out quickly. He started with his Demon Dweller sword, knowing that it was smaller and easier to take out the smaller robots with it. He was making quicker slices, slicing robots down one after another. Eventually 2 pointers started to come out, which Deku started to use more advanced sword techniques, which he had learned over the 10 months he was training. He started fighting quicker and faster, using his abilities more agile. Until eventually he started to feel rumbling. Deku looked back and saw a giant robot start to appear, and Deku's like, I can't take that down. And then he heard a girl scream for help, and she's like, "Help!" And Deku's like, "Oh, fuck, I think I remember that noise. That's the girl who helped me earlier today." And he's like, "But I can't save her. What am I meant to do?" Mr. D's like, "Did you forget what I told you?" Deku's like, "What do you mean?" "Come on, kid. Don't tell me you forgot. What do you mean?" "Literally, I told you. Your swords flow with anti-magic. Rather than expelling that magic outside at a very slow rate to keep them intertwined into the swords, just accept it into your body." Deku's like, "How do I do that?" "Imagine it flowing into your body." Deku's like, "Okay." And he pulls out the Demon Slayer sword and puts it in front of him and puts both hands on the sword as he closes his eyes. He imagines his entire body as he imagines the sword. He started to feel the energy that was radiating off the sword. And he starts thinking, come on. As the sword's energy slowly started to pour into his body, he's like, "That's not enough. I gotta hurry up. You gotta go quicker." The sword's energy started to go more and more and more until that tiny stream that it was turned into a giant river flowing throughout his body, and he could feel it Deku could feel the entire energy, and then he felt something change as he opened his eyes, and he could feel the intense power he had as he quickly zoomed forward at a heightened rate. He found the girl and quickly saved the girl and took the girl back. Everyone saw just a black blur send flying. Deku dropped off the girl. He's like, I'm going back for seconds. As he looks back at the robot, he thinks that the robot is actually experiencing tons of power. Maybe that's why the sword wants to go fight it. Deku then readies his sword as he grabs his second sword outside of his book. He's like, time to take this thing on. Deku quickly launches forward. Looking at the robot, he tries to slice at the arm. It doesn't cut through completely, but it does deal damage. Deku's like, oh, this is going to be a fun fight. Deku goes in from the left. The robot swings from his right arm as Deku quickly evades, landing on the robot's arm, running up it. The robot tries to swat off Deku, but Deku was too quick as he quickly jumps around and then takes a slice at the robot's head. The robot, luckily though, was able to dodge. Deku's like, you're annoying, aren't you? The battle kept going on and on, continuously. People just saw a black blur whizzing around the robot at quick rates. Most heroes in the hero area were kind of surprised by this. Aizawa saw this black blur and was like, this kid might actually have some potential, unlike most of the kids. It kept on getting quicker and quicker and quicker. Deku started to feel the strain on his body. He's like, what's this? And the anti-magic devil responded saying, well, kid, you do understand anti-magic is literally anti-mana. And anti-mana is literally the opposite of basic life force. Or, for most people. Luckily, you run off of more ki than life force, but that's also because you don't got any mana. Deku's like, so what am I meant to do? And the anti-magic devil responds, nothing. Pull back for now, kid. You don't got enough strength to fight this guy. Deku sighs as he hears the alarm go off, signaling that the test had ended. Deku quickly landed back down and deactivated his form. When he did this, he fell unconscious after the intense mental strain that the form gave him. When Deku woke up, he was in a room. He was in a hospital room. There was an old lady who seemed to have been sitting next to him, which Deku recognized as Recovery Girl. And she's like, oh, you're that young lad with that weird black energy power, right? You really overused your quirk there, didn't you? And Deku sat up saying, yeah, I guess you can say I did. And she responds, well, don't overuse your quirk like that. It was very dangerous. You've been unconscious for about 3 hours. And Deku's like, 3 hours? Crap. I'm late for dinner. Mom's gonna kill me. Recovery Girl says, well, other than that, you seem to be fine. And my abilities were able to heal you with any of the injuries you actually did take during the exam, so you're all good. Deku says thank you as he walks out. Deku is talking to the anti-magic devil on his way home, and he goes, so, why didn't you inform me about the whole entire energy drain equals unconsciousness? And the anti-magic devil responds, I didn't think I had to. I figured you understood that. I understood that? There was no implementation of that. There was no explanations. The anti-magic devil shrugs his shoulders and he's like, I don't know what to tell you. Deku enters his house and he's like, fine, we'll talk about this later. And he sees his mom sitting there, kind of annoyed, with dinner still out on the table covered in foil wrap. Deku sits down and he says, hi, Mom. And Nika responds, Izuku, yes? Why are you late? Well, Mom, just so you know, I'm late for a valid reason. What was that? Well, you see, I found out a new power of mine using my quirk. Daring the entrance exam? Yeah. Okay, and what was this power? Well, see, I'm gonna call it my black form. Black form? Why is that? Well, like, half of my side gets covered in, like, darkness and blackness and stuff. But my speed and strength, and I can fly in the form, too. Okay, that's amazing. That doesn't explain why you're late. Well, you see, Since it was my first time using the form, and since I had never accurately actually attempted to manage it, well, let's just say I fell unconscious after using it after the test ended. Okay, how long did you use it for? 30 seconds. And you fell unconscious after 30 seconds? Well, yeah. I assume it's probably because I haven't trained my black form at all. Not to mention, I don't even have a good enough grasp on my quirk. I've only had it for about 10 months now. You know, it's not like I really learned how to use it that much. Inko sighs and is like, you can be so reckless at sometimes. Deku kind of laughs while kind of scratching the back of his head, saying, yeah, I know. Inko says, whatever, it's good. So for the next 2 weeks after Deku finishing his dinner, of course, he was training. He predominantly trained his Demon Slayer and Dweller sword. He still didn't touch his other sword. And he was asking his anti-magic devil about the other sword. And the anti-magic devil's like, oh, the previous person who had this grimoire before you, he used that sword. He got it from an elf. And Deku's like, an elf? Elves used to exist? Yes, elves and dwarves. Come on, kid, if demons and gods exist, you really don't think dwarves don't exist either? Fair enough. You know what? I stand corrected. So, what does it do? Well, basically, I guess you can say, deactivates already activated quirks. What does that mean? Well, you see, I don't recommend you pull out the sword, mainly because the anti-magic inside the sword alone is extremely strong. Like, I mean, even the previous user of this grimoire, when using it, could state that the anti-magic coming off the sword was so much stronger than the other swords. Even his most recent sword that he had, the katana, is nowhere compared to as strong as the anti-magic from that sword. Okay, and what's the issue with that? Well, of course, you know, that does make its anti-magic capabilities increasingly stronger. I think that's a obvious one. But the issue with it is that, yes, the anti-magic abilities are stronger, but also another issue is that it also kind of, how do I say this, puts a bigger strain on your body while using it. You need to build up a capacity for anti-magic first. A capacity? Yes. For example, the kid gave me his right arm during a fight. Okay. He still had control of his entire body and his right arm when he wasn't in what you refer to as your black form. But when he went to his black form, his arm became a devil's arm. And the power was increased and he could create anti-magic in his body itself. Which, seeing how the kid had already built up a tolerance, allowed me to give him 100% of power in his right arm. Okay. But you can only use it for 50 seconds. What? Yes. Even though this kid had advanced stamina to anti-magic, he could only use it for 50 seconds. Okay. And why could he only use it for 50 seconds? Anything longer could have been life-threatening. Wow. So, what you're saying is the reason why you don't want me to use it is because that anti-magic quantity right now could be life-threatening? Yes. My least amount of anti-magic sword is probably the sword you mainly trained with before you started to use the Demon Slayer sword, which was the Demon Dweller sword. Demon Dweller sword is the weakest in anti-magic, and then Demon Slayer, and then the katana, and then Demon Destroyer sword, which is the last one. So why do I use a sword that's literally named the Demon Destroyer sword? Wouldn't that just kill you? Yeah, the naming scheme is kind of stupid for swords that are possessed by devils. But then again, originally it wasn't even used by us. What do you mean? Well, you see, as I told you, the Demon destroyer sword was originally used by a elf, along with the other two swords. The katana was used by a human before eventually being adopted into an anti-magic sword. Okay, and so were you not partnered with the elf? No, I was only partnered with the kid onwards. Who is this kid? The kid's name was Asta. He became a kind of well-off person, I guess you can say. But that's all I'm going to talk about him. The guy who originally owned these swords and this grimoire, his name was Licht. Okay. And what about him? We'll see, when he used the swords, it's kind of different. His abilities with them weren't anti-magic based. It was more sword magic based. So these are magical swords that resonate with sword magic but resonate with anti-magic. Yes, because when the swords entered the grimoire, they were adapted with anti-magic. Because I was already in here by that time. Of course, it was a little bit of a struggle at first, but it was still adapted with anti-magic. And now I don't even think these swords can go back to being just sword magic at this point. They seem to be predominantly anti-magic. Okay. So that explains a lot. No, it doesn't. What do you mean? Well, see, I was wondering, because these swords, it's kind of weird how they're all named Demon Slayer, Demon Destroyer, but one's named the Demon Dweller sword. Well, one's meant to trap demons, one's meant to slay demons, and one's meant to destroy demons that have been slain. What do you mean? Well, simple enough, kid. Your second sword, your Demon Dweller sword, can store magic and release magic. Or quirks, I guess you can say. That's how you borrowed that power from that one kid. Okay. And then your Demon Slayer can reflect magic, as well as has higher anti-magic than your Demon Dweller sword. Okay. So when it's a slayed demon, there's still bits of it left, and it's residual magic. That's where the Destroyer sword comes in, being able to wipe out all that excess magic and stuff, period, leaving the demon that was originally there completely gone. Okay, and what about the katana? What does the katana have to do in all this? I don't know. The katana is a weird sword. What do you mean? Well, see, it's not a magical sword. Huh? See, it used to be a regular katana owned by the kid's captain. But you see, the kid's captain got kidnapped, and then the kid grabbed the katana. It became fleshed with anti-magic, thanks to the kid having his right arm be a devil arm. So, anti-magic was already being created inside his body, which got sent to the sword itself, turned into an anti-magic sword, which was then put inside his grimoire, making it a part of his swords now. Okay, and what does it do? I don't know. I don't think there's any special abilities with this sword. We haven't seen much about it. It just seems to be another form of fighting style if you want to use a different sword that isn't New England based. And Deku's like, yeah, all these look medieval. Yeah, it's the only katana that's actually there. Only sword that isn't medieval based. Okay. Well then, what else am I meant to do? Don't worry, kid. P.S. Your mom seems like she's about to run in here. How do you know that? It's a technique I'll teach you later on. I learned it from the kid before you. Okay. Inko's mom runs into the room. She hands Izuku a letter saying, Izuku! Izuku, look! Look, look, look! He sees it's a letter from Yue. Deku sits down on his desk and opens it up. Out pops out this small little disc. And a man shows up. Deku recognizes the man as All Might. And he's like, hello, young Izuku Midoriya. You scored the first place out of all the students. If you didn't know, I'll be attending UA this year as an instructor. for Class 1A. Just so you know, your class will be designated as Class 1A. So I'll be your instructor this year. You also ranked first, with having 2 points above the second ranked place. I wish you good luck on your journeys in UA. This shuts off as Deku is happy seeing that his hero just had wished him good luck. Inko said, "Deku, isn't that amazing? You got into UA." Deku kind of smiled as he looked back at his mom. He's like, "Yep, it's amazing." The next day, Deku went into UA. He entered the building and searched around for a little bit because he couldn't really find where the classroom was at. Afterwards, he ended up finding Class 1A. Deku entered the room. There were 2 personnel kind of arguing. You can notice it was the blue-haired kid and Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo kind of scuffed when he saw Deku walked in, which made Ida turn around. The boy quickly ran over to Deku and said, "You're got number 1 on the UA entrance exam. I can't believe it." "You are obviously a better student than me," he says, while shooting his hand up and down. Deku kind of passes off Ida and says, "Oh, thank you, he says as he goes to sit down in his seat. Ida starts talking to him, and he's like, yes, I understand. And eventually a girl walks in. Deku saw the girl and recognized it was the girl he saved and the girl he talked to earlier. Uraraka, I think her name was. Deku thought in his head. The anti-magic devil started to laugh, going, "Ho, ho, ho, ho. Time for the romance." Deku's like, "Romance? What romance?" Deku and the anti-magic devil says, "Don't worry about it. This is just one of the ways I get my entertainment out of you two." Deku kind of sighs, which Ida sees, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, am I overloading you?" And Deku says, "Oh, no, it's something totally different. I was thinking about something I have to deal with today." And he's like, oh, okay. Kind of put off by Deku's response. The girl walks over, and she's like, "I know that green hair anywhere. You're the kid that saved me, right?" And Deku said, "Yep, my name is Izuku Midoriya." "Oh, Izuku Midoriya. Okay. Well, how's your day?" "Oh, it's good. How's yours?" "Oh, good." Deku then looked behind her as he saw a weird yellow thing kind of flop into the room. Deku's like, "What's that?" Everyone turns around and sees the yellow thing stand up. And he says, "It took you 8 seconds to calm down. That will not do." Izuku recognized the man, but he doesn't know where he recognized him from. Everyone else kind of looked at the man all weird and wondering how did a hobo entered the room. The man drinks a pouch and then exits the sleeping bag entirely. "Get on your gym uniforms. We're going out." Ida kind of responded saying, "Sir, don't we have the entrance ceremony to do?" The man responded, "If you have time to go to an entrance ceremony, then you don't have time to be a hero. Now get your butt out there." Everyone kind of shrugged and went out there. Deku went out first and got his clothes on and then went down there. He exited the room. Aizawa saw Deku carrying around a book, and Aizawa was like, "Hey, you're the person who scored first place, right?" "Yes, my name is Izuku Midoriya." "What's with the book?" And Deku's like, "Oh, well, you see, it's my quirk." Aizawa weirdly looks at Deku and goes, "It's your quirk?" And Deku says, "Yes, this book's actually tied directly to my quirk. See, I can kind of, I guess you can say, summon it when I actually need it and it's not in my hand or is floating around me, but once it's activated, it'll stay next to me no matter what. And also, if I need it, I can always turn it on from afar, which will bring it over to me." "Okay, so is that the reason why you're carrying it around?" "Yeah." "Okay. Well, since you scored first place, what was the longest range you could throw without using your quirk with a baseball? 30 meters. As I was like, wow, that's average. That's below average. What about with quirk? I don't know. I've never attempted with my quirk. I only got my quirk about 10 months ago. I was always kind of shocked by this, and he's like, you got your quirk 10 months ago? Yeah. And I was always like, what, are you that super late bloomer kid that was going around the hero world earlier this year? I don't know. I might be. I might not be. As I was like, God, if this kid is that kid, that means his quirk is way stronger than what we saw, seeing how his quirk is specialized for fighting quirked individuals. And what was that form you activated? There was no reports of that in your notes. Oh, well, see, that was a power I just recently discovered. See, I guess you can say my swords get off a certain energy. And by manipulating that energy from out of the swords and into my body, I was able to adapt the energy into what you saw. I call it my black form. It gives me increased speed and endurance and strength. I was always kind of surprised by this. It's like, okay, whatever, kid. Okay, I need you to, using your quirk, hit that ball as far as you can. And Deku was thinking for a moment, how am I meant to do this? And then he looked back at Uraraka and he's like, oh, no, wait, that won't work, he thought, because he was like, I don't even know how to activate that ability. And Deku kind of like thought about the anti-magic devil and he's like, do you know how? And he's like, don't ask me how, kid. I don't do it. Okay. Deku then pulled out the Demon Slayer's sword, which most of the classmates were kind of surprised about because this sword is pretty big. It's about the height of Deku when it stand up on its own, not to mention it's almost the same width. Almost no one can even think about how heavy the sword is. Deku uses it like a bat and bats the ball as hard as he can. He didn't go into his black form though, which kind of surprised us always. Like, why isn't the kid going into his strongest form? The ball got sent flying about around 800 meters. Everyone was kind of impressed by this. I was always like, hey kid, you said you could go even stronger, right? Oh, yeah, I could. Then why didn't you? Well, you see, getting used to using my anti-quirk swords or my AQ swords and getting used to actually handling the anti-quirk energy that's inside of them are two different things. See, when I activate my black form, it kind of drains me stamina-wise a lot, very quickly, because I'm not used to handling that much anti-magic or anti-quirk energy that quickly. Okay, whatever, kid. Everyone else does all the tests. Deku actually ranks second behind Bakugo in front of Todoroki. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. I know I might be kind of making Deku a little bit too strong in his understanding of the swords and stuff, but I feel like Deku would try to talk more with the devil because he's not really that much keen into actually believing devils and stuff are real. But now he's slowly starting to believe more, but since he had already talked with the devil and he kind of understood the devil, that he would talk to him more. You know, and seeing how Asta can also talk with his devil on his choice, I would expect him to be able to too. And if you guys liked it, hit the like button. And if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.